What's up, everybody? It's Brian at MA-Motorsports, and in this video we are going to talk about an BRZ that we built back in 2016 and delivered somewhere in 2017 or so. Very, very cool car, full pro car build. Ended up going to a Canadian client who then sold it to another fella up there. It is back here at its birthplace for some updates. So I'm going to give you a little history on the car, walk you through what we did to it back then, and also what we're doing to it now. This car originally got sent down to us just for a roll cage and a quick change differential install, though the owner quickly realized it made more sense for us to just see the project all the way through for him. Suspension-wise, we had to rebuild the front end of the car because it was wrecked originally, and we ended up installing a set of Stance 3-way adjustable coilovers along with a full WiseFab kit, which at the time was still rather new. It was the version 1. After we did the cage, we stripped out any little tabs and brackets, etc., finished up some of the chassis work, did some stitch welding, and sent the car to media blasting. Once it got back, we finalized any fabrication that was needed, sent the chassis out to get painted, and began installing all the rest of the parts. The car originally had a full Motec suite of electronics in it, including an M84 ECU, C125 dash, CAN keypad, and PDM30. Right here made both the chassis and engine wiring harnesses for it. The engine was locally built by AHM Performance. It was 440 cubic inch RHS aluminum block engine, used mastheads, Hillborn ITBs, a daily dry sump, and a set of equal length long tube headers we built here in-house for it. All of the plumbing was high quality crimped together stuff as usual from us. We fabricated a lot of little tanks, cans, brackets, including this trick little coolant combo catch can in the right rear corner of the engine bay. Used a fuel-safe 10-gallon fuel cell with dual Bosch 044 in-tank pumps, which was the hot setup at the time for us. Bodywork was HGK wide fenders, kept the factory metal doors but gutted them, Rocket Bunny aero kit in the little spoiler. We got a Sabon carbon vented hood that we had to trim to accommodate the large K&N filter for the ITBs, Sabon carbon trunk lid as well. And then we had our own carbon roof skin made for the car from our friend Frank Marone. The entire car was then sent to our friend Mike's body shop, where he put the matte gray color on, which oddly is very similar to the Steel It gray that we use on the chassis nowadays. So that's the basic rundown of the car. Please continue enjoying these awesome photos taken by our friend Dalen Snow. So I met Gabe at Englishtown for a gambler competition. I was there working with Brian Hopp, and he is the new owner of the car, and he said that he wanted to update some things and change some things. The car is a little dated in the sense that, it still had the radiator in the front, and there were some other things that he just wanted to change about it or update. And not that there's necessarily anything wrong with having the radiator in the front of your car, but he wanted to move it to the back, and he wanted us to do the work, and I was happy to do it, obviously, because we were really proud of the way this car came together back in the day. So it's here now. So Marco here is going to help me get this thing on the scales. We are just going to locate a couple things around it to kind of best decide where to put the weight of some items. We have a fuel cell to locate still, because that used to be located directly in the middle of the trunk here. And with the radiator there now, it could not stay there. So we are toying with the idea of getting a smaller cell and keeping it back here, which would be very simple, as opposed to relocating an even smaller cell to the back seat area. So we're going to try to put the battery here, which is a 40-pound Optima that used to also be in the trunk, and put a smaller cell in the trunk. We can keep all his fuel lines. We'll make it on bolts so he can get his radiator out. I'm really hoping that we can make that work, but we're going to see what the scales say. All right, that is light. So this car, which is full of fluids, right? It has oil in it. We didn't drain the oil out. So it has oil in it. The fuel cell that we put back in here is still full of fuel. It does not have any coolant in it, but we just stuffed a couple gallons in here. And we could probably stand to put a couple more in there, because that Drift Spec CNR radiator is massive. So no coolant lines under it, which are going to hold some water. Battery we sat back here. We still need a driver. And Marco going to get in here, I guess. I guess. And we'll see what an average human weight does to it. If you can do math, you'll now know exactly how much Marco weighs. Yeah.
We had Chipotle for lunch.
We had a lot of. We did have double chicken. Right. So the cross isn't even that bad. Look at that. We could dial this thing in, Marco. Well, you could drive this thing right now.
All right.
Right.
Batteries. Let's say.
Yeah. So we'd need to up the weight of this thing substantially to run Formula Drift. However, what I really wanted to put on the scales was to look at the rear bias. And we're at 47.3, which isn't too bad. I think we could still stand to have a little bit more weight in the back from my experience. But even at 47, this is a really good working car. So I don't think we're going to really move anything around at all. I think that we're just going to get a little bit smaller cell. We're going to go from that 10-gallon to an 8-gallon, only because we'll be able to fit it in there better. And then from there, button this thing up. So Marco just brought up a really good point that with the radiator in the front of this car previously, this thing was probably pretty nose heavy. And I don't have any experience driving this car, and I never really got any feedback from the original owner after we built it for him. But it should definitely perform better now, be a little more balanced, that much closer to 50-50, without making it too rear heavy, because you really don't want that like pendulum effect, that like real, the car like driving from the butt feeling that a lot of people try to avoid. That was like a trend in pro drift cars for a brief moment there, where people were piling the weight in the back, and I think people are wising up and going back to like a little more neutral front heavy car. So we are going to toy with moving the Optima battery in the back next to the fuel cell and just see what that does. They are heavy, man. Optima, yellow top, red top, about 43 pounds. I like the Optimas myself. They are really reliable, and if you want a lighter battery, I'm sure there are a lot of options. I know there are, but I like the Optimas. They work really good for us, and in most cases we need the weight in these cars just to make weight for Formula D legality, so I don't mind using a heavy battery. You can put that weight wherever you want. So moving the battery from the backseat area to the trunk next to the fuel cell, we picked up about 0.5% or more of rear weight. Gonna try and keep the battery in the trunk in this case. So under the hood, we originally installed a 440 cubic inch engine built by our local machine shop, AHM. It had a daily dry sump on it when it left here originally. And these same headers, the Hillborn ITBs. The only difference was the long block, and it looks like they changed this plumbing here and added this breather tank. So one of the things that Gab wants us to do is put a daily dry sump setup back on it because it did seem to work better. Something happened to the old engine, and so it got this one put in it temporarily. So Daly has a dry sump pan they're making for us right now, and we are going to put that in as soon as it arrives. So another one of the reasons that Gabe brought the car to us was to put one of our newer version quick change subframes in. The old subframe that we built for it back in 2016 had the diff sit a lot lower to the ground, because at the time the rules said that you could not modify these upper portions that went over the axle of the subframe. And so that really limited axle clearance. Now, though, we are allowed to change those so we can move them up and have full axle articulation. So our new subframe that we offer for the GT86, you can find it on our website. It sits the diff higher than any other GT86 subframe on the market, as far as I know. It's a little dirty and used in here, but the rest of the car is pretty much original how we built it back in 2016. It's got an HDK dash in here that we flocked, and all Motec equipment. I believe it's got when it left here, it had an M84, and I believe it now has a Link ECU in it that the new owner installed, but still has Motec dash, Motec keypad, dry sump tank here, full wiring harness built by Ray when he was here, the old ASD handbrake. It's got a G-Force GSR in it, really nice roll cage Dylan Hughes built when he was working here. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, all bulkheaded in. Remote mount master cylinder, so the seat fits here. And again, a little dirty back here, and we need to remount the fire suppression that used to be mounted up here in the middle. But you can see some of the tin work that Marco started here. We still have to put a little bead rolls in it, and we're going to paint it. Kind of tough to see, but we'll update you on that more in another video. We had this carbon roof skin custom made, and we still have the mold if anybody wants one. Really high quality roof skins for the FRS BRZ GT86. Full plastic windows in this one, and this was before we found Plastics for Performance and we were hand making all the windows. HDK fenders, Sabon hood, Stance 3-way shocks on it, full wise fab front and rear. We just updated his upper control arms, drive shaft shop axles still. So that's a little history on this car, and I'm gonna do another video doing the dry sump stuff once we get the fuel cell located, and whatever else we're gonna do. I think we're gonna put individual EGTs in it for his tuner as well. So pretty excited to have this car back. It is super cool, and a little piece of MA history. And not many people know about this car. It was a big build, and back then, social media wasn't as big. We weren't doing really any YouTube back then. So I thought I would show it off, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in having a car built, if you're interested in anything for your professional drift car, let us know. We're here to help, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.